What up, YouTube? Welcome to TMC Fishing. Like always, I appreciate you for watching. All right, today on Reeltalk, we're going over hooks, okay? If you're anything like me, you got into fishing young, and I actually my granddad gave me an old toolbox, or old tackle box full of anything and everything you can think of, and some stuff you can't. I don't know, there's some old striper stuff in there that I don't think I've ever seen anywhere else. But I had tons and tons of hooks that I had no idea what they were. You know, a hook, back then, a hook was a hook was a hook. You know, whatever one looked cool and whichever one I thought was big enough or small enough to catch what I was fishing, that's what I tied on. I had no idea what I was doing. Now that I've gotten into bass fishing, I've started learning. I think it's something that a lot of people just assume is common knowledge and don't take the time to explain. So I'm going to go over the different types of hooks you're going to need for bass fishing, which ones I recommend, don't recommend, for which presentations, and when, where, and how to use them. So let's dive on in and learn something today. All right, so I'm going to start off with going over what I think are the most widely used hooks, and then we'll slowly taper down into more niche situations, just so we can cover all of our bases. And the first hook I think we need to start off with is the old school, this is called a straight shank worm hook, okay? These are, or the biggest characteristics to this hook, see if I can get that lined up nice and pretty, is the eye of the hook. This is the shank part that goes around, and then the point. The eye of the hook and the point of the hook are offset. Okay, so this is what's referred to as a worm hook. Biggest characteristics of this is the eye of the bait and the point are actually not level. They're offset. And the shank of the hook is relatively thin. I can throw this, generally I'm going to be throwing this with a thinner profile bait. So like a Senko, a ribbon tail worm, a swimming worm. I even really like throwing my Guggen trench hogs on this. And the advantage of it is you can hide the entire plastic, or the hook inside the entire plastic. So it's incredibly weedless. Does really well at coming through thick, nasty, branchy cover. I like throwing these in the reeds. We have a lot of reeds around here, and it goes between the reeds and comes in and out very, very well. If you don't want to throw like a big heavy flipping jig or a giant flipping, 1 ounce weight or something, you can get by with being a lot more subtle in throwing these. And then the next hook that we're going to go over here, this is called a EWG, and what that stands for is extra wide gap. Now these are your bread and butter when it comes to bass fishing. This is by far the most used hook out there, for a multitude of reasons. One, it's very versatile. You can throw a huge multitude of baits on it, and they just flat out work. The biggest way you can tell these, is the extra wide gap right here is generally made for thicker plastic. So like beaver style baits, thicker creature baits, even paddle tails, you want an extra wide gap. So it's got a good curve on the shank, but the point and the eye of the hook are pretty much level. So this bait, you're going to do what's called texposing, where this point is going to be set out on top of the plastic, level with the eye, so the bait will collapse. Okay. There's a lot of different variations of this because it's such a popular bait. If you don't want to chew up your swim baits, you can throw extra wide gaps with these little screw locks. Okay, I use these for my flukes, for my paddle tails, stuff to that effect, something that's going to swim behind this bait. It's really well because the screw locks, especially a lot of those baits, have kind of a narrower nose, and you'll chew them up with that eye. This screw seems to hold them pretty well. And then even make keel weighted swim bait hooks in case I'm fishing deeper. I can actually get the weight down there because a weightless soft plastic tends to struggle in that situation. But super versatile. That's going to be your bread and butter. I highly recommend getting a lot of these when you get into bass fishing, a 3 to a 4/0. And the aught, whenever you get into hooks, the higher the number, the bigger the bait, okay? So I'll tell you, a 3 to a 4/0 is probably going to be your bread and butter for, really, that's all I ever use. I'll throw a 5/0 if I'm throwing something monstrous, but 99.9% of the time a 3 or a 4/0 will get the job done. And the cool part is you can even size down. So once you get below the aughts, you have, this is a size number 2, okay, not a 2/0. This is a size number 2 EWG. I have a bunch of these, and I use these for drop shotting whenever I want to throw my drop shot weedless style. I'm going to throw my worm or whatever little tiny creature bait I'm going to throw, and I know I'm going to throw it in some thicker cover and brush. These little tiny EWGs work very, very well, rather than throwing just a open circle hook. All right, the next hook that I highly recommend getting is, this is a Wacky Rig style hook, okay? It's basically just a small circle hook with a longer straight shank at the bottom here, this part. Wacky rigging is such a huge presentation for, especially if you're a beginner or advanced getting into bass fishing. Wacky rig is one of those presentations I tell everybody they need to learn how to do, which is just throwing a Cinco style bait, a Cinco worm. You're going to hook it right in the middle, and you're going to toss it out there on like a light spinning reel, and you're just going to let it flutter and kick around. This exposed hook, these things are deadly. Because it's an exposed hook, in that situation, your hookup ratio is phenomenal. You don't have to set the hook very hard. You just kind of reel into them, and they're phenomenal hooks. I also use this hook for drop shotting. Whenever I'm not throwing in very grassy or very brushy situations, if I'm fishing more open water, deep ledges, stuff like that, I'm going to be throwing this hook. And a little bit different, I like something with a little bit more volume when I'm throwing these to get in there, but phenomenal hooks, and that's what all these little guys are used for if you ever get your hands on them. I also have dedicated drop shot hooks here. This is, these ones are 6 cents version, and these ones, if you notice right here on the bend, they have a little spot, and normally your bait actually sits right there, and it just gives them that, because you want your bait to sit perfectly level. It just gives that bait somewhere to sit and not bind up in that point. And it's a little thinner gauge, so you got to be really careful. You can't rip their lips with this. You set your drag loose and you just let them run, okay? You're not going to, because you will bend these hooks very easily. These Wacky Rig hooks are a little beefier if you look at them side by side. A lot tougher to bend, but still can, okay? So you got to be very careful. They also make a weighted variant of Wacky Rig hooks, okay? This one's actually got a weed guard on it too. The only time I use these is whenever I'm fishing deeper water than I like to with a Wacky Rig, or if the wind's getting to me. If I feel like I can't feel that bait or I can't make accurate casts and I still really feel like I want to throw a Wacky Rig, I'll switch over to a weighted one. And this is only like a 1/16. It's not like it's a super big, you know, 1/4 ounce or something like that. It's just a little bit of weight to help you get a little bit farther cast or manage that wind or get a little bit deeper than you can if you're getting tired of waiting for that bait to sink, because they do sink very slowly. Okay, and the last hook I really want to go over. This is a flippin' style hook, okay? This is a straight shank flippin' style. Okay, these are a little more niche. You're going to use these generally on like a beaver style or like a craw style bait, something that's got a pretty hefty amount of plastic, because you're actually going to have to bury that point into that hook or into that bait to make it as weedless as you need it to be. Now, generally when you're throwing this, you're flipping into nasty cover. Either you're punching grass mats, hydrilla, stuff of that nature, outside edges of reeds, or even deeper into reeds, you're probably throwing braid, 50, 60 pound braid on this, because you're not worried about the fish seeing your bait, because it's just going to be in and out super quick. And when you set the hook with this thing, you absolutely crack them, okay? You give them everything you got, because you're going to have to punch that hook all the way through the plastic into the fish, up and out, okay? Generally in thick cover. And you got to keep them pinned. Don't let up on the pressure, okay? You're just going to slide the bait around, and you've got these two hook keepers, okay? I've seen them metal, I've seen them plastic, you know, a multitude of different companies make different keepers, but the main sense of the keepers, you've got both of these keepers on each edge. Your bait's going to sit, the tip of your bait's going to sit in between them to keep your lure or your soft plastic from falling off. Okay, like I said, this is just like the namesake, this is for flipping. This is a flipping hook. Okay. And that's pretty much all the hooks that I feel like you're going to need for 99% of situations you're going to fall into with bass fishing, whether it's throwing any type of soft plastic you can get your hands on. You can pretty much throw with any number of these hooks. They do make smaller, kind of like straight shank worming hooks for drop shots and stuff like that I see a lot of guys run. I haven't played with them yet. I've really like I said, I've sighted in on throwing these small EWGs over that. One day I'll probably test them out and see if I like them, but I don't feel like I need to at this point right now. I also had a little bit of an honorable mention. This is kind of a cool thing that a lot of people I don't think know about or have ever heard about. This is called an Ozark rig. Okay, this little Ozark hook. It's a little different. I've only played with it kind of here and there. I've had some pretty good success with it though. And I don't want to say it's niche, it's just more talking myself into using it. But the cool thing about this is all weighted. The shank of the hook is weighted evenly. So whenever you're throwing a soft plastic, it actually, instead of falling nose down, like it will with a bullet weight, it will fall basically level to just a hair nose down, and it'll glide down, okay? It'll just glide super slow, depending on how much weight. They got two different sizes. And how broad your soft plastic is, the wider the soft plastic is, the slower it's going to fall, versus if you throw something really narrow like a worm, it's going to fall quicker, right? Because there's not enough drag. But if you're fishing, it seems like pressured bodies of water, or if you're fishing more like suspended fish, it seems like they're not hitting it on the bottom. You seem to get a lot of bites on the fall when you're throwing like a Texas rig or something, but they're not quite wanting to chase a paddle tail or something like that. This is a really cool option. It's just something different, something they don't really see. I think they come in 3 or 4 packs, and it's just something a little different. So I recommend checking them out if you get the time, or you want to try experimenting with anything. They're super fun. But that's pretty much it, guys. This is just a simple, short and sweet video I wanted to do and knock out. I haven't done a real talk in a while, so I wanted to go over something that I felt was important. And like I said, I feel like hooks is just something that a lot of people feel is common sense. So a lot of people don't take the time to explain it or take the time to educate themselves on what hooks to use in what situation. So I really hope this video helped you out. If you guys have any other topics or anything else that you want me to go over, please drop it down in the comments. But like always, guys, I appreciate you for watching, and I will see you next time.